Ooh, that looks tasty.
Welcome folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review, and today we're talking about Pericle, the Gathering Darkness. Now, before I get started, please make sure you turn your thing on subtitles, because if we make any mistakes in the rules overview, that's where you'll find the corrections. Additionally, I need to point out that the publisher did send me a copy of this game for this review. The last little disclaimer I'm going to give you is I am doing this review after playing through a significant chunk of the game. I don't know exactly how far through I've gotten, but I have done, I don't know, maybe 15 hours with gameplay, and I feel like it is enough for me to kind of give you my basic thoughts. Now, I'm going to show you two different things. I'm going to show you the stuff that's happening here on the board. You'll see there's acrylic standees here, and I'm going to show you some stuff that happens on the website, which is how you get all of your story and all of that. Now, with that being said, this is a relatively massive sandbox-style RPG dungeon crawl style game. You can see all these different maps that I've been playing through over my past week or so. And you're going to be building up your different characters. And as you can see, I have a character right here as I've kind of finished. This is the state that I finished in for the moment, and I got some spell cards in there. But you're going to be creating these different characters and taking them on this adventure. Now, all of the narrative and story and most of the combat tracking is going to be done in an app. The app's going to tell you what the bad guys do. The app's going to track their damage. It's going to track whatever conditions you've put on the bad guys, and so on and so on and so on. Now, with that said, I am going to tell you a little bit about how combat works here on this particular map, and then I'm going to show you a bit about how the app works and give you my final thoughts. So this one's going to feel a little bit scattered, and I'm sorry for that. But starting out with combat, the way combat is going to work is when you have yourself, and I'm going to kind of pull some bad guys here off of their standees so we can have a little bit of a better view, and kind of put them here on the board. And I'm going to pull off just a couple of our heroes and just kind of understand that with the heroes the way they are, they don't actually totally fill their hexes. And so there we have our heroes, and we have a zombie over here and a big old scorpion here. Now the way combat works is the app's going to manage your initiative. So it's going to roll it for you. You've entered all the data that it needs, and it's going to tell you who wins. If the bad guys win, they're going to decide who moves first, and if you win, you decide who moves first. And movement's very simple. Most of your characters are going to have a movement of 5 different hexes. If you go different places, like here in the water, or try to climb up in the fountain, the app will have told you in the setup what the rules are for doing that, and what the benefits are and what the penalties are if you fail. But for the most part, most of your heroes are going to have a movement of 5. Now, the important thing is, once you get within usually 1 hex next to a bad guy, or if you have range, a reach, like our little spearman here, within 2 hexes, you're going to become embattled. And what that means is your movement is immediately going to stop. And from then on, as long as you're embattled, you're only going to be able to pivot, which is move a single hex around them or away from them. And it's important to note that you're only in battle if you're directly in front of or in these kind of 2 side hexes. If you're actually, as I pull this aside here, if instead you are actually behind the bad guy, assuming he was facing this way, then you get different bonuses from being on the back flank or all the way behind to your attack, and you're no longer embattled. Now, the other important thing is, the first thing that's going to happen is that both you and the enemy will do all of your movement before anything else. After that happens, there'll be some repositioning of changing hexes and stuff, so you're facing the right number of enemies and so on and so on, and then you get to move into actions. And action is done in initiative order, which again is tracked in the app. The app's going to tell you this is who goes next, and you can take an action. Usually that action is simply going to be some kind of an attack or casting a spell, though there are other things that you can do during the game. What matters is you're going to use a D10 die, special D10 die here, to carry out those actions. And when you roll these dice, if you have these little targets, that's an automatic success. If you receive this one here, that is a critical success, which is when you're fighting, you're going to get to roll this crit die, which might double your damage. It might activate that weapon's special ability, which for a sword is a disarm, for an axe is bleed, and so on and so on. You might get something like this, which is just do normal damage, or activate the ability, both, or you get the, or again, just normal damage. And the same thing's kind of going to happen if someone chooses to defend. They're going to get to roll this defend die, which will be either they completely block all of your attack, nothing happens, you get -1 to your attack, or so on. Now, the last thing I'll say is, I said that you get these auto hits. There's also these numbers on the die, and that's going to relate to how good you are at combat. You're going to have an AD, attack die number, and you're trying to either get one of these hits, like so, not an automatic miss like that, one of the hits, or equal to or less than your number. So if I had an AD2 and I was attacking here at this zombie, I would miss on that, but if I rolled that or a 1, I would hit. And the same type of thing is going to happen when you are casting your spells. You're simply going to roll your chance to succeed at the spell, and if you roll below the right number, you will succeed. However, what's going to happen is you're going to be using your hit points, your life points, for your spell casting. Every spell you cast has what's called an exhaustion number. In this case, to cast Blur, it's going to take me 4 XP to learn it. I have to have a knowledge level of 0 to learn it, and it'll cost me 1 exhaustion and then 1 more exhaustion every turn, and then I'll get to carry out whatever the ability is. But the thing with the exhaustion is it's actually your life. You're actually taking your hit points and sliding it over into exhaustion. So you can actually kill yourself if you cast too many spells, though exhaustion is much easier to heal. And so you're going to move through this game. You're going to travel around, going from map to map, adventure to adventure. The app's going to tell you what to set up, and you're going to fight, you're going to battle, and you're going to be leveling yourself up and possibly dying as you're going. And that is mostly how this game works. I do want to take one moment to point out that it has D4s that are rounded, which I love those, and I really wanted to point that out. But that's kind of how this game works.
So what do I like about this game? First and foremost, I like that it's doing something different in the dungeon crawl space. I can't stress that enough. I think this game, along with League of Dungeoneers, and Dungeon Universalis, and then I'm told Dungeon Crusade, but I haven't played that, is really bringing back a somewhat old school vibe. And it just has an old, and even though in this one it doesn't have that exploration that you're getting with Dungeon Universalis and League of Dungeoneers, but you have so much freedom with what you can do. This game feels a little bit more on tracks because you're going through the app, even though I do know for a fact that there's different choices you make takes you different places. But because it's in the app, it feels a little less sandboxy, even though this very much is a sandbox style game. But what really makes it pop to me and feeling more old school is the amazing control you have over your character. You can make whatever you want. So in the campaign that I'm playing through right now, I have 3 generic characters that came in the folders that came in the box, and these were characters already created, had a path for them, and I used those 3 all through the tutorial. And you can have up to a party of 4, but I used 3 through the tutorial, and then I kept them in the game and started upgrading them, boosting them, because you can do that, and then made up a totally brand new character. My idea was, oh, this is someone that they met at the bar or whatever, needed a job. And being able to build your characters how you want is awesome. And only those 3 games that I listed, and maybe Dungeon Crusade, really let you do that. You can make a character whatever you want it to be. That's amazing. I love everything about it. I love the simplicity of the game's combat mechanics. It's very, very simple. You're rolling the die, you got a 10% chance you're going to miss, you got a 10% chance you're going to do a critical. Everything else depends on how you built your character in between. And I think that is just really refreshing, because at the same time, combat is very streamlined and fast and exceedingly tactical. And that's because of the embattled condition, the way that changes how things move and how you're constantly, when you're fighting, doing a little chess match of positioning. And I just think it works really, really well. But because of all the disciplines that you have, because of the ability you have to enhance your weapons with the magic rune stones, just a slight changes, but +1 is a big deal when it comes to hitting. Because of all the different spells that you can get, and you can build it however you want, the possibilities are huge with how you deal with it. And that, to me, is where this game shines. I also really appreciate that For a game that is this big, and don't get me wrong, it is a very big game, it is a small box. Now, it ain't a small box like Backyard Chickens here, but it's not a massive thing like Dwellings of Eldervale here, or Dungeon Universalis, or Gloomhaven, etc. It's a small box, and part of that is because all of the story is on the website, and all of the miniatures aren't miniatures, they're acrylic standees, and the acrylic standees look really good. They really look good. It has a front and a back to them, and they have to because of the positioning and stuff, but it really looks good. They look great, and I really enjoy having them. And then all of the maps are very, very simple. They're clean, they look good, easy to place out onto the board, and they're good enough that you could almost use them in your D&D games, except they're hexagon, so they don't quite work. But you can certainly use all those acrylic standees in your other games, so that's just awesome. The next thing that I appreciate is I like the story so far. Now, I'm going to be clear here. I'm going to be a little bit picky on this. It's not the best written story. There are definitely a few things that I've read and been like, really? That's what you said? That's how you're going to write that? You know, the bad guy, you're going to talk about how you're doing bad things? You know, didn't work for me. But the core of what is going on, I'm very intrigued by. And to be clear, this is not a badly written story. It's just not a brilliantly written story, right? This is not Madara that I think has a brilliant story. This is not Tales from Red Dragon Inn, which I think has a very, very good story. It has a very interesting story that I'm following up on, that I'm pursuing, and I think that it's enough to where I've now played more than I needed to make this video, and I'm still going to play a few more games before I put it away and do other things that I'm supposed to do, which I think is very, very good. The second to last thing that I'm going to highlight is something that I particularly like, is I really like the simplicity of the weapons, the armor, and the items. They're all very, very clear. Every single weapon, and you can flavor it how you want, of a certain weight class does the same damage. And different types of weapon has a different type of bonus that you might get from it, but they are all very, very simple. There's none of this, well, a hatchet does this, but a hand axe does this. A dagger does this, but a dagger with a serrated edge does... None of that. It's just quick and simple, get into the game. And it's the same thing with pretty much all of the items. Pretty much all of the items, it's, oh, you have a cloak? What's a cloak do? Well, it's going to help you if you are sneaking or hiding with a specific type of check. That's it. Done. And everything's like that. A crowbar, a magnifying glass, just everything, it's all specific things that are going to give you specific bonuses, and oddly enough, it feels more real than just having something that's magically a bonus on everything. And I really appreciate that. Same thing with armor. Armor, it just protects you from some damage. Done. Move on. And it just works really well. Last thing I'm going to say is, I'm going to talk about the website again in my quibbles, but the fact that they have the ability to pay attention to what people are doing, where they are, what choices people are making, I think is great. Because one of the things that happened is I sent in a question to the designer about something that was going on in the story. And he responded that yes, he was looking at what I did, because on the back end you can see how far my party's gotten, and he wanted to tell me that because of feedback on this one adventure that I did, they actually have changed all the others, and the negative things that I had for this one part of the adventure don't happen anywhere else. And down the road, they're planning on actually rewriting that portion of the adventure that I was in, so future players won't ever have to deal with that. And I think that's very cool, that this is a living game. It's almost like a living rule set that they're going to constantly keep tweaking and adjusting, so it's the best experience for the players. I really, really like that. And I said that was the last thing. It's not the last thing. I also really like the spell casting. Spell casting, again, is very simple. You're going to roll a die. Do you successfully cast your spell? But there's no mana or anything. You're using your life energy. And so to cast a spell, you're taking a point of damage. It goes to this it goes over to exhaustion, which is easier to heal, and you can heal just by like taking a breath. But the fact that you can kill yourself by casting too many spells, I think is great. It makes the whole world feel a little bit grittier. It makes magic feel like something that this has a cost, and I really, really enjoy that. And then I'm also going to say, I really like the way that the app manages combat. I really appreciate that it says, this is what they're going to do. There's different buttons that you click, which If the bad guy's been embattled, it's going to give you something different that it's going to do. If they have misfortune, it's going to give you something different that they're going to do. Or tell you, nope, it's doing it anyway because of that. And I really appreciate that because it gives you enough so you know what you need to do, but also the game very clearly leaves it open for you to make decisions because the website doesn't see the board. And there are times I've been playing, it says, do this. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So I'm not going to do that. I have all the information I need. I'm going to have it do something different. And that happens, I don't know, 1 out of 15 times, 1 out of 20 times. It rarely happens. But I love that it's so easy to figure out what you're going to do because the website's just managing it. It's not doing anything super complicated. And I really, really appreciate that. So what are my quibbles with the game? First thing is, it's all on a website. Not even an app that you're going to be able to download. So if something happens, you're going to have a box of stuff with nothing to do with it. Well, I guess you can use those as standees, but you get what I'm saying. This company's going to have to keep going because you can't download it. And I wish that I could download it onto my computer so I just have it and I could get updates every now and then. Also because then I could play it if for some reason I wanted to take it somewhere and I didn't have internet. So I do wish that was a thing, and I know that's probably going to put some players off. The next thing I'm going to say is that because the combat is so streamlined, and though I really like it, I know there's going to be some players that feel like it's limited and you're not getting to do as much as you want to do during combat. And the truth be told is I don't actually think that's true because of all the disciplines you can get and all the spells you can get and all the different abilities and so on, so on, and so on. But it will definitely feel that way. When you play a game of Pericle compared to playing a game of Dungeon Universalis, you do feel like you don't have as many choices. But it's kind of what are you looking for? And so even though this does feel like a very open world sandboxy game, it does have a lot more streamlined to it, which may feel like you don't have as many choices as you might want if you're thinking about this kind of old school kind of game. Then the last two things that I'm going to say are these. The first thing is I have not found the game hard yet. There's been a couple of moments where I was like, oh, this character's going to get killed because I'm having some bad rolls. But I have yet to come up to a part of the game where I was like, oh, thank gosh, I thought I was going to be completely wiped. It hasn't happened yet. Now, to be fair, I'm still early-ish in the game. I don't know. I've played 15 hours so far, something like that. So I'm still early-ish in the game. So that might change, but so far I haven't found it hard. And then the last thing that I'm going to say is, I love those acrylic standees, but oh my god, I spent, I swear, 3 hours peeling the plastic off of them. It took so long. There's even somebody who has a video out there showing you how to peel them off faster, and it was way faster. But it still takes a very long time. I think it's worth it, but it just takes a long time. So there you have it, folks. That is Pericle: The Gathering Darkness. I'm super happy that someone posted about this on the Adventure Dungeon Crawl Facebook group, and I'm even happier that they sent me a review copy of it, because I'm really digging it. And as I mentioned before, I'm playing it more than I needed to review this game. And now I have this issue of, now I have another huge dungeon crawl that I have to get through the whole thing. But all in all, I think if you like adventure, you like something that feels a little more open world, it feels like it's decently epic, and you want a lot of control with your characters, and you don't mind using a website to deal with a lot of the things, then this is one that you absolutely need to check out. As always, if I made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with the timestamp so I can get them to the Klingon subtitles. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.